But what happens if the next Superman becomes a terrorist?
I want to build a team of some very bad people who I think can do some good. And we're going to call that team the Suicide Squad, because our best Suicide Squad is now in session. Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I am Jason Task Force X Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson. Welcome to your Mind University, because you have stumbled onto the podcast where we take one character, construct, or list from popular culture and teach you everything you need to know about them in about an hour. And we're doing a list today.
That's right. And we're doing a list in honor of, there's a movie coming out called The Suicide Squad. Different from Suicide Squad, because now it's The Suicide Squad.
Also different from The Batman. SEO is going to love that, let me tell you.
Makes a big... See, that's when you know it's the real...
The Facebook?
It's a real thing, because we're the Geek History Lesson podcast.
Wow.
Actually, somebody could start the Geek History Lesson podcast, and then we'd be up Schitt's Creek. And I'm referring to the excellent CBC sitcom.
The Canadian town.
Not the curse word. So anyways, we are here to talk about the best Suicide Squad ever. What is that? What does that mean? Well, we're going to tell you in just a second, but I want to first shout out that this episode was suggested by some listeners of ours. Suggested by Alexis in Bowen and Jordan Wiltshire. So thank you guys for suggesting that. If you are listening to this podcast and you're like, hey, I like this idea of best whatever, Ashley, where could they suggest future episodes?
The best place that you can make your suggestions is on our social media, and that's facebook.com/geekhistorylesson or on Twitter at GHL Podcast, because Geek History Lesson was too many letters.
Yes. So as we said before, this is the podcast where we usually break down characters in about an hour, but we also do like to do very interesting thought experiment, very interesting list type episodes. And this is one of those where we create a set of rules, and then Ashley and myself will create what we think is the best Suicide Squad team ever. Now, here is the interesting thing about Suicide Squad. In the DC universe, it kind of seems like you're either a full-blown supervillain, like you are only dedicated to your hero, like Joker is only for Batman, or you're a Suicide Squad member.
Or you're Harley Quinn.
Well, Harley Quinn is both, yes. So we very early on, when we're developing this episode, realized that this would be a very difficult episode, or it would be an episode where Ashley and I would almost probably create the exact same team if we left it to the DC universe.
Mm-hmm. In fact, this is an episode that we have tossed around doing for a little while, but we were always worried about this restriction, and then we finally stumbled on the way to open it up a little more and not just copy what the excellent John Ostrander did.
Yes, so here are the rules if you want to play along at home, and you can give your lists.
Please do. In fact, we love seeing them.
To those places on social media, and we want to see them. We want to see your talks. Okay, so here are the rules if you want to create your best Suicide Squad, and this is how we came up with our teams. Every person that we are talking about today either has to be an anti-hero or a villain. Now, there's only one exception to this. There is a wild card member, and the wild card member can be a full hero, because you do see that in the Suicide Squad where there are certain heroes that get stuck. I think Wally West was on one of the recent versions of the Suicide Squad, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Arsenal Roy Harper has been on the Suicide Squad.
He's also been very famously on The Outsiders.
So you only get one full-blown hero. Everybody else has to be an anti-hero or a villain, and they can be from any comic book universe. So you can throw Marvel characters in there, you can throw Image characters in there, you can throw Dark Horse characters in there. IDW's Kanto can be a member of the Suicide Squad. Well, not technically, he's a hero. But the Shrouded Man could be. The Shrouded Man, the villain of Kanto.
Sure, there you go.
Go buy Kanto, it's a good rip. Great book written by a great guest of ours. Anyways, enough about Kanto. Let's talk about best Suicide Squad ever. Okay, so here are the roles of the team that you have to fill. You always have to have these groupings. So you have to have a leader of your Suicide Squad. That is an Amanda Waller type character. You have to have a field leader, which is a Rick Flag type character, the person that's in the field with the Suicide Squad. You have to have a weapons expert because there's usually always a dead shot on the team. Mm-hmm. You have to have a wild card. Now, this is a Harley Quinn type that we designated, but this is where your hero lives. You have to have a magic wielder, which is like an El Diablo / Enchantress type. You have to have a bruiser, which is a Captain Boomerang type, like the career criminal type dude.
You're dummy.
Yep. And then you have to have a monster, which is a Killer Croc type. We based this off the movie list because it just seemed to be the simplest. Now, that is 7 roles you have to fill for your best Suicide Squad team ever.
Which is a classic number that we've used here on the list before.
And you can add any extra. So you can have as many extra people as you want, and that is up to your that is up to your deciding, as long as they're an anti-hero or a villain. All right. So before we get into this main episode, guys, don't forget that if you want to get even more Geek Wrestling content, you can support this podcast over at patreon.com/Jawin. There's a Geek History Lesson extra podcast, which we're going to talk more about the Suicide Squad and stuff over there, and also 2 other exclusive podcasts over there every month for your listening pleasure, plus video content like Crisis Club and Blackest Night Club Explained, and sneak peeks at our comic book. So check that out. Support the show, patreon.com/Jawin. We're at our eternal climb to get to 500 super friends before we hit 500 episodes of Geek History Lesson, and with your help, we can do that. So, and thank you to super friends over there that help us out. So now back to the episode. All right. This is going to be interesting, Ashley. I'm actually very curious about your team.
I think you're going to spend a lot of time being like, Ashley, is this person really an anti-hero or really of questionable morality?
All right. I'm also very curious to see how far outside the DC universe you strayed.
Well, I have a character on here that I know for a fact you have no idea who they are.
Well, that's going to be
fun.
So,
yeah.
You could have made that person up. How would I know?
I definitely didn't.
Okay.
But yeah,
sure?
I have a comic strip character on here.
Is Snoopy in your Suicide Squad?
See.
Is the Red Baron from Peanuts in your Suicide Squad?
We'll see. It's the kite-eating tree. I did actually...
That would be a monster.
I did consider the kite-eating tree.
Are you serious?
But I don't know if he can move.
He can't.
So
every Suicide Squad adventure you had would have to take place in like 100 feet meter of that tree.
Or one of my stronger characters would have to carry him in a pot, and that just seemed a little ridiculous.
That team would be Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn being like, doot, 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 doot. Hey, can come fight us in this one park. And all the heroes are like, why are we always going to this like Century Park in some Indiana town, wherever the Peanuts live?
And they live in Minnesota.
Do they?
Yeah, they do, because
I thought it was Indiana.
It's Minnesota,
okay.
And I'll tell you why.
Because Charles Schultz
lived there, but also I know this because I recently read this strip on the Schultz Museum's Instagram. Shout out, they're not a sponsor. They can sponsor us at any time. We freaking love them. He has a St. Paul's sports team pennant in his bedroom. Charlie Brown does.
Oh, cool.
So St. Paul's, Minnesota.
Charles Schultz would have been an acceptable answer for a member of this team. I'm just going to say that. Let's move on.
But I did consider the kite-eating tree.
Oh, wow. All right, Ashley, let's start off with the leader.
Uh-huh.
You're Amanda Waller type.
Uh-huh.
Who is the leader of your Suicide Squad team?
Okay, so when I was doing this, I allowed myself one self-indulgent choice, which means one character Jason and I created.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
I did not do that.
And so for my leader, I felt like I really wanted to put the villain of Jupiter Jet and the Forgotten Radio, because I think she's a freaking badass, but I didn't want to talk.
The Black Flyer?
No, the Black Flyer's boss.
Oh, I think we can give that away.
Yeah, sure. We talked Praetor Venus, but I didn't want to spoil it by talking too much about the plot.
Yes.
Because I really love her, and I just think she's great.
And she's coming back in Volume 3.
And she's coming back, and I can't wait. So instead, I went for the OG Jason and Ashley villain, and that is Praetor Pluto.
I was going to say Deadlines?
No. Praetor Pluto also, just from an aesthetic standpoint, has a similar body type to the classic comic book Amanda Waller. So I just imagined him standing in high heels, pointing his finger up at a hero, at Batman, and screaming him into submission.
Well, why don't you tell the listeners, just in case they haven't read Jupiter Jet, who is Praetor Pluto?
Praetor Pluto is the villain of our debut comic series / graphic novel, Jupiter Jet. Praetor Pluto is the dictator of the city, which is where Jupiter Jet lives. Olympic Heights. And he is very much a classic mustache-twirling villain. He's big. He's bald. He's tough. He's scary. He can crush a robot with his bare hands.
He has lizard eyes.
He has a ray gun, and he may or may not be of the same place that Jupiter Jet is.
He also has a helicopter.
He does, and he commands an army of what we call legates, which is like an automaton army. So Praetor Pluto is used to organizing. He's used to strategery, and ultimately, but ultimately, he is not always the smartest person in the room. Like, he needs a field leader, which is why he has
He's
Bruno Vermonte. He is used to having people execute his orders. So I thought he would work really well for this. He would look cool on any potential art. And I got to have somebody that I created on my Suicide Squad, which my ego really, really wanted.
Okay.
And I didn't think it was fair to put Jackie or Tamsin or Aurora on this team because they're too good for this world. So I went with Praetor Pluto. So now, if you are not familiar with him, your homework is to go and read Jupiter Jet. It's really good.
It's on Comicsology.
It was nominated for an award.
It was.
So
cool.
Jason, which non-self-indulgent character is going to be the leader, the brains behind your Suicide Squad or Task Force X, which is incredibly hard to say?
For me, because, they're not actually called the Suicide Squad. That's
the title of the book.
Yes, it's the nickname.
Mm-hmm.
It's the nickname that the characters make, that they call themselves Suicide. The actual name would be Task Force X. But best Task Force X ever doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's hard to say.
For my leader, I don't see any other leader than the actual leader that we base this leader type off of. Amanda Blake Waller
I
is
swear to God,
leader.
If you just make this Amanda Waller, Rick Flag, Deadshot, and Chandra, I'm coming over this table. I know you would do that.
So she is the best. She, of course,
She's amazing.
is Amanda Blake Waller. She's the original leader of the team. She first appeared in Legends #1, created by John Ostrander, Len Wein, and John Byrne. She, of course, is, the government agency who comes up with the idea of Task Force X. She comes up with the idea of using these criminals. She's very testy. There's a lot of scenes where she goes mano a mano against Batman.
And wins.
Yep, and in the Justice League animated series, they they homage that famous scene where where Batman confronts her in the shower and stuff like that.
With CCH Pounder.
CCH Pounder voices her in the show, but that is the whole reason why that character exists. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, for me, if we were ever to make, and I think we did make the best X-Men team ever.
Yes, we did. Back in the early days when we recorded in a closet.
I can never have an X-Men team without Cyclops.
That's true.
I could never have a Suicide Squad without Amanda Waller. No matter, everybody else can change. Amanda Waller is always, to me, going to be the leader of the Suicide Squad.
Nice. I can't but co-sign that because Amanda Waller freaking rocks.
She does.
Yeah.
She does.
All right. Shall we move on to the next team member?
Yes. The next section is the field leader, / Rick Flag type. Now, this is going to be the person who's going to be the boots on the ground in the weird, wherever places that their missions are taking place, that they're going to be the person that is talking to Amanda Waller on the radio and ordering these team of anti-heroes and villains around. Ashley, who's your leader? I'm very intrigued about who your leader is. I don't think you're ever going to predict who my leader is.
So my leader, I thought a lot about who Rick Flag is as I reflected on which character. This was hard for me to pick because the character who I wound up moving to be my weapons expert, because I had a hard time making this list, I'm not going to lie, was originally my field leader, and then I didn't have a weapons expert, so I moved them around because they were a better shot. Rick Flag, even in the comics where he is a harder character than he is in the movie, Joel Kinnaman makes him very likable, I think. Rick Flag is, in his heart of hearts, not a bad dude.
No.
Rick Flag thinks he is doing right with his particular skill set.
And I also will say this, because this is definitely of my character that is the leader. Rick Flag is not typically an anti-hero. He actually is a good guy. So
yeah. I'm sort of taking that spirit with my choice.
I did too. So my leader is also somebody that I think a lot of people would argue is very heroic. But
yes.
my leader has also been a criminal in the past. So who's your leader?
My leader is Rowan Black. Rowan Black is the lead of my favorite Image comic, Black Magic.
Interesting.
And the reason why I've put her here, and I know that there are people screaming at their phones
technically
that
she's
a hero. She is the lead of the book. But Rowan is shrouded in secrecy. She is shrouded in conspiracy.
She's also shrouded in amazing Nicola Scott art.
She is often, let me tell you, friends, for the adults in the room, often unshrouded in that art. It's a very beautiful book on many levels. And she has to make. She's a police officer. She works with Portsmouth Police. She makes choices that are against probably the code of conduct for a good police officer in service of her own interests or her magical interests. Rowan Black is also a witch. She's not the magic wielder. I have a way eviler magic wielder than Rowan Black ever dreamed about being, who comes from...
Don't set the bar too high.
Oh, man. My magic wielder, I don't think you're going to expect, but when I say it, you're going to be like, yeah, I get that. Cool. Rowan Black comes from a long line of American witches, and she keeps her power a secret from her bosses. She keeps her powers a secret from her partner. And so she winds up in a lot of ambiguously gray situations trying to do the right thing from a magical perspective, and then having to take the darker path in order to protect in her eyes. And I think that's something that the leader of the Suicide Squad has to do. Like, you are put in a lot of morally gray situations. You have to make tough calls, and you ultimately have to decide based on your best opinion what you think is the right course of action, because you're Amanda Waller type. Amanda Waller is willing to sacrifice you at any standpoint, no matter what.
You're expendable.
Praetor Pluto is absolutely that kind of operator because he's used to working with robots. So I needed a strong, powerful character who could push back against them and who wouldn't be afraid to make the hard decisions.
Can I ask you a question?
So I picked Rowan Black. Yeah.
Because I'm not as familiar with Rowan as you have, because
Yes.
I've only read the first volume of Black Magic, whereas I know
Black Magic is my favorite.
Whereas I know, and you've read all of it.
All of it, yeah. I'll try not to spoil anything from the last volume.
And I'm only going to ask this because of these two roles. Like,
that's fine.
The leader and the field leader are going to have to work together.
Yes.
How do you see Praetor Pluto and Rowan working together?
I see Praetor Pluto and Rowan working together in this way. And part of it is because Praetor Pluto is an all-ages character and Rowan Black is definitely a mature reader's character.
Does she sexy him up, or what goes on there?
No. She does the thing where everything she does is coming from a perspective of like, but this is your idea, boss, right? Like, she will... But there are...
Oh, so she kneels to the throne.
Yes.
Basically.
But she's smart enough that if she makes a decision that he would go against, she could frame it in a way that he would be okay with it. But also, in Black Magic, she both has situations where she pushes against either her police partner or like her coven members, where she's like, no, I did the right thing and you have to respect this because I know best.
Okay.
And ultimately, to me, that is a very Rick Flag choice. And if you're going to lead Task Force X, you have to have that perspective because you're doing questionable stuff all the time. So she's my field leader.
Cool.
Jason, who is your field leader on Task Force X?
My field leader is a person that was a criminal, has been a hero for several years. Many people are going to scream at me about this person as well because they're going to be like, that is definitely a hero. But I make the argument that he started as a villain.
Yeah.
He became a hero. He's gone back to being a criminal several times. Currently, he's back to being a hero. And I would think that most people, if you see the movie version of this character, would argue that he's a hero. But even in the movies, he's been corrupted. My field leader is Hawkeye Clint Barton.
Oh, yes. And go listen to our magnificent Hawkeye episode where Jason speaks very passionately about the character. But yes, Hawkeye, classically a villain.
Yes.
Especially the Clint Barton version.
Well, and that's why I feel fair to give him the anti-hero here, because Clinton Francis Barton started as a villain. He was a villain when he was first introduced. He got put on the Avengers. Then he got put back into a criminal. Then he came back to the Avengers. And then he left the Avengers to go lead a team of criminals, the Thunderbolts, which I actually think is one of Hawkeye's best stories because it's called Hawkeye and the Thunderbolts. And to me, that's what inspired this, where I was like, oh, he redeemed a group of criminals in the past. I want him to redeem a group of criminals now, which is why he would take this role. It's why he would take this task. I think he'd be very good at it. It'd be interesting to see because Hawkeye usually, because I like classic like Wolverine costume Hawkeye, and when he was with the Thunderbolts, he changed his belt buckle to the shape of the lightning bolt. And for this, I'd be like, oh, would he change it to a skull? Change it to a skull? Because people also think when he dressed up like Ronin for a long time, he kind of like just started killing people.
Yeah.
So he like that's the reason for me. Like, I wouldn't call Hawkeye a straight out hero. I would call him like an anti-hero, very much so. And I think he would fit in very well with Amanda Waller because I think working with Amanda Waller is very similar to working with Moonstone, who was the lead psychologist of the Thunderbolts, somebody who was always trying to manipulate him to be the leader. He would abandon Amanda's orders a lot, but I think he would take care of his team. He would ensure that he would be the person, like if you were able to put Hawkeye from Marvel Comics as the field leader of a Suicide Squad, I think he would be the person that would be like, we are not the Suicide Squad. We are the Everybody Comes Home Squad.
Interesting.
Which I think would allow some interesting story possibilities.
I agree.
So, again, a lot of people are probably like, oh, he's a hero. I think I make the argument that he's an anti-hero. It's very interesting that you and I both pick sort of hero. Like, we both slipped two heroes into this, which is very funny.
Well, hold on to your butts because I'm going to do that a bunch more.
Okay. All right. So now let's move into the weapons expert. Ashley, this is the Deadshot role. This is somebody that should be proficient at some sort of skill. You know, this would be the person that, like, when the mission is going all wrong, this person comes out of nowhere and makes the shot or kicks the person in the head and saves the adventure. Who is your weapons expert, Ashley?
My weapons expert, much like Deadshot, is known to be a sniper. If you are familiar with them in the comics, kind of like Jason was talking about with Hawkeye, they have a long career as a villain and nemesis of a very popular, well, they're popular now, character. They become a hero. They wibbly wobbly a little bit. In the movie, they smoothed it over because he's played by a hot guy and pretty much made him a good guy right off the bat. But I am going to pick the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes from Marvel.
Interesting. I think he's definitely an anti-hero.
I initially had him as my field leader, and I do think Bucky is an incredible leader, but I think Bucky is a good leader after he's had his hero turn. Bucky at his core is like a sniper.
Is your Suicide Squad full of good guys?
It is. I have one more character who is arguably a good guy, but they're my wild card, so they're allowed to be.
That's fair. All right.
But like Winter Soldier, for me, like my favorite thing about Winter Soldier is the legacy of him as the Russian operative and like what that means, and like exploring the ramifications of his time working with, if you call it the Red Room or whatever retcon you choose to believe for that. And that's what makes the hero turn so interesting. But I could have definitely seen a world where Marvel slapped him on a team, like on the Thunderbolts, which he has been a member of.
He has also been the leader of the Thunderbolts before, in an OKR incarnation.
And they kept him more on the villain track, but then they cast a hot guy in the movie, and they just went full hero with it.
Well, and now he's the star of a television show.
Yes. So, I mean, I understand that, but to me, what makes the character most compelling, and honestly, when he's at his most badass, is when he is being a bad guy going against Captain America. And he is arguably, maybe against Hawkeye, the best shot in the Marvel Universe, or certainly up there.
I would say he's in the top 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love Bucky. As we know, I've put Bucky on many teams, so he was not a hard choice for me to add to my team. Plus, I know next to nothing about weapons, so I didn't have very many choices for this, besides a guy with a gun.
Not Condiment King?
Not Cable, I'll tell you that much. So, Jason,
who
is your weapons expert?
Well, for me, I didn't want to toss the boat away. My weapons expert is Deadshot, the person that we like. Floyd Lawton.
You picked two of the actual Suicide Squad members.
When I think
that's fine. It's totally fine.
When I think Suicide Squad,
he's the image that you think of. It's him and Amanda Waller.
I think Deadshot and I think Amanda Waller.
You're absolutely right.
And I think no matter how you change the team, you can get rid of Rick Flag, you can get rid of Enchantress, you can get rid of Suicide Squad. I'm never been a big fan of Harley Quinn on the Suicide Squad.
I agree.
But I understand why you put her there. But to me, the Suicide Squad is Deadshot.
Yep.
And Amanda Waller.
In that OG costume with the red and the helmet. And
maybe Bronze Tiger is there as well. You know, maybe, but
only if he's played by Michael J. White.
Sure, but I kind of feel like the Arrow version of the Suicide Squad. Like to me, Deadshot. If you're kind of like if you're doing an Avengers title, if you're doing an Avengers team and Captain America's not your leader, you're crazy.
I agree, especially now.
For me, Suicide Squad, and you don't have Deadshot in that team, you're crazy.
I don't have any original Suicide Squad members on my team.
Deadshot, of course, if you don't know who he is, he's Floyd Lawton. He's originally a Batman villain, appeared in Batman number 59 in June of 1950 with an amazing tuxedo and mask. And he basically is the Deadshot of the DC universe. He's considered to be one of the greatest he's considered to be the top marksman in the DC universe. Mm-hmm. He possesses superhuman-like accuracy, and he charges so much because he's able to make his shots. I mean, he once shot an apple off of Captain Boomerang's head with his eyes closed. He has a daughter, which is propels him, so that's why he's very much an anti-hero. He's not a villain. He's very much a guy of he's like Deathstroke.
Morally gray.
Yeah, he's like, you pay me to kill the guy, I will pay the guy, because that's the agreement we made to. And
I almost put Deathstroke in this role. Because I think Slade Wilson is a great character.
Yeah, you know what? And Deathstroke has been on the Suicide Squad before.
Yes, he has.
And I actually don't think he's a terrible choice. He would have been an interesting
He should have been your field leader, yeah.
But...
Because he don't follow orders.
Yes, but when I came up with the idea of Hawkeye, I was like, oh, he's the field leader.
Yeah.
And also with our list of being able to... leave the DC universe, I was like, I want to put some interesting choices. I want to make this the wacko team.
Listeners also can't see this, but Jason is wearing a David Aja era Hawkeye purple shirt right now.
Well, it's not Hawkeye. It's actually a Starter shirt.
Yeah, but it's that same tone.
Yeah. But Deadshot, for me, like sliced bread, Deadshot is the sliced bread of the Suicide Squad.
Sure.
You're going to make a Suicide Squad sandwich, Deadshot going to be on there.
Suicide Squad sandwich. Someone please draw that. That's so funny.
So yeah, there you go.
Amazing.
All right. So this is going to be the most interesting one.
All
right, easy. Playing that Price is Right theme song. Don't give away our Patreon secrets. All right, anyways. Wild card, the Harley Quinn type. This is the... Even though we've already snuck a couple heroes onto this team, this is the only one where you could have an outright hero.
No, my nine is
pure good.
Yeah.
So Ashley, could it be anybody from any universe?
Yeah.
Who is your wild card?
I mean, it has to be a Robin.
Oh wow! Which Robin did you force into the Suicide Squad?
I sat here and I thought about who are the toughest Robins, and I think there's 3 candidates for your toughest Robins. It's Jason Todd,
which he's an anti-hero,
who I did not choose.
Okay.
It's Damian Wayne, who I'm never going to choose. Who I think is arguably an anti-hero.
I think you could make him an anti-hero, especially with the stuff that's happening.
They've softened him a lot, though, I will say.
But they've also hardened him because he's now no longer a Robin.
I love him, though, his little bat. And then there's Carrie Kelly, who has to deal with the hardest Batman and the harshest terrain of Gotham City that we've seen. And honestly, she's not on enough of my list, so I put Carrie Kelly here.
Carrie Kelly in the Suicide Squad?
Hell yeah. I love Carrie Kelly. She's incredibly capable.
Okay.
She is an absolute badass. She is an adult.
She is?
She's either 20 or 21. And honestly, if you can put up with Refrigerator Batman, I think you can take on Amanda Waller.
Refrigerator Batman.
I just think the Dark Knight Returns Batman looks like a fridge because he's so wide. Like,
I mean, he is a square. He's
he
a walking
looks
square.
like a refrigerator. Like, he looks like he has swallowed a fridge.
Sure.
And I think if you can follow his leadership to the point where he'll hug you and call you a good soldier, Amanda Waller's got to be a walk in the park. So I think Carrie Kelly,
I'm just
and
sad
nobody else here is gonna Pluto, whatever. Winter Soldier, she's probably got a crush on him. Rowan Black, they could be buds. Nobody is going to make this girl blink.
I'm just sad that
And
you're
my magic wielder is going to be her buddy.
I'm just sad
I gave her a best friend.
that you're putting this pretty little girl into Belle Reeve prison.
Look, I didn't say she was in the prison. I said she was on the Suicide Squad.
Well, generally, if you're on the Suicide Squad, you're in the prison.
Yeah.
You live in Belle Reeve prison.
But I didn't say that.
Okay. All right.
Maybe she works there.
Okay.
So, yes, I put Sweet Baby Angel Carrie Kelly
All right.
as my wild card.
All right.
I knew right away that it was going to be her. So,
All right.
Who is your wild card? Who's your out-and-out hero?
My wild card is what some people would call the greatest hero in any
Superman?
comic book universe. This is a character who has a shocking personality.
Black Lightning?
And when he got his powers for the first time, his electricity powers, they were uncontrollable. They caused lots of accidents. And in my Elseworlds for this character, I'm saying that his powers went crazy. And because of that, Amanda Waller was able to use governmental powers and arrest him and make him a member of the Suicide Squad. I am talking about Superman Blue.
Oh, my God.
The Electric Superman is a member of the Suicide Squad.
You put Superman on the Suicide Squad?
Superman Blue, baby. So if you don't know, in the 90s, after Superman's death and return, he got his powers back. He lost his powers during the final night. And then when he did a bunch of experiments to get his powers back. And eventually he started developing electricity powers. And he became, for about a year, Superman Blue, where he was in a white... I think it's an amazing design. A white and blue Stuart Immonen costume where he had electricity powers. But for the first couple of months, he didn't know how to use them. Now, Superman Blue is very powerful. Grant Morrison used the powers very amazingly to have him electronically and magnetically move the moon out of orbit.
Yeah.
So to me...
The issue where he debuts in that, by the way, is very funny.
Yes, and also, during the storyline, there was a lot of things where people didn't trust him, or people were like, Are you sure you're Superman? I don't know if you're Superman.
Which, to be fair, they just came off of like 4 people being like, I'm Superman, and it was not the case.
Yeah, so to me, this would be Clark Kent being captured by the Suicide Squad, and he's using electricity powers. Amanda Waller obviously has a device that can control him.
Yep.
And then, if this was a Suicide Squad comic, which it would ever be, this would be Lois is like trying to find Clark.
Oh, that's cool.
And has because he's classified now. And the Suicide Squad all takes place off the radar, so she has no idea where he is. But I thought the idea of, and you don't usually see an electricity member on the Suicide Squad, and I thought Superman Blue, because I wasn't going to put normal Superman on the Suicide Squad, but Superman
or John
Blue
or something.
Yes, and then also with all the shenanigans of the Magic Wielder and my Bruiser being on this team, I'm going to say that. Also, somewhere along this run in my best Suicide Squad ever, he splits into Superman Red as well. And then there's Superman Red and Superman Blue both on the team.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Superman Red becomes their villain.
Good choice.
So, Superman Blue is my wild card.
Wow.
Yep.
I mean, wow.
Yep. All right, now let's go to the Magic Wielder, the El Diablo / Enchantress type. Who is your magic person? No, don't say it. She's going to show up.
Honestly, I thought about putting Enchantress or June Moon in this position because I have read a lot of versions of her character in the comics that I do really like, and I think a more comic accurate version
I agree.
On a team would be very cool. I thought about Raven in this position.
Interesting.
I thought about the character from Marvel Magic, who you may have seen recently in New Mutants. But ultimately, I went with an actual child. My Bruiser is also an actual child. And that is Clarion the Witch Boy.
Ah, good choice.
Because he is...
Which is little kitty Tico.
He's straight up evil.
Yeah, he is straight up evil. He is a villain.
He is a villain. He is a very powerful magic wielder, but it's the fun, creepy kind of magic where it's like maybe necromancy. And then I thought that he might actually make a nice companion for Carrie Kelly. I have like 3
You think Carrie Kelly and him will be friends?
Carrie Kelly was Damian Wayne's tutor, so she has the patience of an actual angel.
Okay.
So
fair.
I think Carrie and Clarion could get on. And Carrie's going to like Teakle. And then this way I get a kitty on my team, too.
You do get a kitty on your team.
Yeah, like Clarion's a 2-for-1.
And it's not a normal kitty. It's a magical kitty.
Yeah, but because I put Clarion in this position, in my Bruiser position, I initially had Etrigan, and then I revoked it because I felt like they were too similar.
Oh, Etrigan's an interesting choice for a Bruiser.
He also could have worked as a magic wielder, but I really love Clarion, and he doesn't get to be on enough teams.
Etrigan could be one of your extras.
He's not.
Okay.
He's not.
I'm just saying you could revise your list
I have
literally on the
3
air.
extras. I got a 10-person Suicide Squad. I don't need no more people on this team.
I think I have 2 extras.
With their lives being threatened. But yeah, Clarion, because he is a wonderful character. Also, if people haven't read Zatanna and the House of Secrets, which is a DC Kids book that came out, that did a really good job at softening Clarion, but keeping him mischievous and magical. And that's probably a little more what I was going for with this choice. So there you go, Clarion the Witch Boy. Jason, who is your magic wielder?
Well, I thought the same thing. I almost put Enchantress on this as well because, comic book Enchantress is actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
She's a really great character, great design.
Tough to use, though, I think, with the dual personalities.
I agree.
Tough to employ correctly.
Yes, and as we saw in the movie, or as I was thinking in the movie, I don't think they quite used her as well either in the movie. But I was thinking about, I wanted somebody interesting. I wanted somebody crazy. Again, we could leave the comic book universes. And I think that my magic user is a friend that is very familiar to this podcast, but not who you think. And it can only be explained.
Oh, boy.
Ashley, I think you should pick up the phone.
Hello? Hello? Phone's still ringing. Hello?
Hello! It is I, Dr. Strange. I'm calling today, you random person on a podcast, because my lovely Clea is missing. And I think she may be at a prison in Louisiana.
Then you should call Louisiana, boss. This is California.
Oh, boy. Oh, no.
Use your sling ring and just bippity-bop right over there.
Maybe I will. Maybe I can write letters to her in the prison.
Sure, sexy
like
letters.
A pretty conjugal visit date.
Steamy letters.
Yes. All right, goodbye. Click.
Bye. Oh, okay. All right.
So my magic wielder is Clea. You could call her Strange, but I'm just going to call her Clea.
They're not married yet.
No. She's the daughter of Umar and the niece of the demonic tyrant Dormammu. She has been the ruler of the Dark Dimension. So she is very much an anti-hero. She's been
deeply
used,
powerful.
She's been used as a villain against Doctor Strange. She has been used as an ally to Doctor Strange. And I think she's a cool character. And I definitely hope that she's in, at the time of this recording, she has not been announced in the next Doctor
Heavily
Strange movie.
rumored, though.
Everybody thinks she's going to be in it. I hope she is. But she's such a fascinating character that I think needs to be more talked about in the Marvel Universe. And if I had my way with Doctor Strange, I would marry them off because I want to see a married Doctor Strange and Clea because I think it's a fascinating thing to do with that character. And that's why Clea, I think, would be an interesting dynamic on my team. Also because, I just think that... right now, I have a bunch of straight-laced people. Even when you talk about Superman and Deadshot and Hawkeye and Amanda Waller, they're all straight-laced. And Clea is kind of kooky and out there and kind of weird and kind of mysterious. And now I'm going to start getting into like some of the weirder characters that would also be on my team. So, yes, I'm sorry. I'm locking Clea Strange into Belle Reve prison, and she is going to be the magic wielder on my Suicide Squad.
That's a great choice. Yeah. A really great choice.
Yes. Sorry, it was the only way I could get the... I couldn't have Clea call because you're Clea.
Yeah. I mean, you could have tried, baby.
I could have. But I thought that was...
Hashtag Jason for Clea.
Not possible. All right, so let's go to the next person, the Bruiser type, the Captain Boomerang, basically just the career criminal, the muscle. Yeah, you're everyman character, your any job character, but it could be a real tough customer.
But yeah, they have to be like have a certain level of power or proficiency to them. So when I thought about this, what sticks out to me about Captain Boomerang is that Captain Boomerang doesn't know how powerful he is, or how good he is, how capable he is, particularly...
He's almost an expert marksman as well, but with a boomerang.
Yes, particularly the the film version of him, which I quite enjoy, actually. I think Jai Courtney in that role is one of the best things about the Suicide Squad movie.
Yep.
But he definitely doesn't know how good he is, and he arguably doesn't have a full grasp on his abilities. So that's what I went with. And I picked a character that Jason doesn't know, and that is Todoroki from My Hero Academia. It started as a manga, so it started as a comic book. Now it's an anime. And Todoroki is the son of the second most powerful hero, and his parents got together and bred their powers so that he would be powerful. So he is his left side is fire powered and his right side is ice powers. You've probably seen the image of him. He's got red hair on one side, white hair on the other side, and like a Zuko style scar. And he grapples not only with how powerful he is, but he has a lot of daddy issues, which we stand here on the podcast. And he is grappling with whether or not he's going to let that take over and whether or not he's going to be able to be the hero that he wants to be. He is maybe the most powerful and the most rawly talented of the kids when you meet them at the beginning of the book. The protagonist eventually does outstrip him because that's how a hero's journey works. But I could so easily see Todoroki having a villain turn just because it is easier. And that's also the thing about Captain Boomerang is Captain Boomerang, again, like Rick Flag, not a bad dude, but a criminal because it's the easiest choice. Or maybe because it's the most fun choice.
Interesting.
For him. So that's what I went with. Todoroki is 16 when you first meet him, so an actual child on my team, which means that he could pal around with Clary and Carrie Kelly. And he is arguably my first diverse choice of this team because he is a Japanese hero. But I really wanted an anime or a manga character, and Todoroki is also my favorite character from My Hero Academia. So I wanted someone with a lot of raw power and not a lot of intelligence or control. And so he came to mind because I hate Bakugo, so it had to be Todoroki. Jason, who is your bruiser?
Well, I already have a diverse choice on my team. They're the leader. But
yes,
I will say that my bruiser is also a diverse character.
Cool.
Because when he was alive, he was a black man. But he's not no longer alive. I'm talking about Spawn.
I knew you were going to put Spawn on here somewhere.
Al Simmons, the Image Comics character, the warrior from hell, the Hellspawn from hell, if you don't know. Al Simmons is perfectly bred for a Suicide Squad because he was a deep ops assassin for the military. It's been unclear whether he was it depends on whatever origin. Todd McFarlane changes it every week.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's part of the Marines, sometimes he's part of the CIA, sometimes he's part of the Army Rangers. But basically his job was to get painted in black makeup, take a sniper rifle, and go kill dictators off in the far lands of the world. And when he died, he made a deal with the devil. The devil was called Malboja to come back to Earth. And he realized when he came back to Earth, it was 5 years later, and he was imbued with all this insane necroplasm power. And he used that power to make chains, skulls, and a really bitchin' red cape.
He sounds like him and Clarion would get along.
Yes. But he is technically a Hellspawn, but he's called Spawn. And he has these amazing. His powers have never been defined as magic, although they are.
But they're magic, or they would. I would classify them under those tropes of magic as we understand them in fiction.
But the interesting thing about
in
Spawn,
Western fiction,
the Spawn, especially Al Simmons' Spawn, is that since he is a soldier, he tends to actually use weapons
because he knows how
to use them. Even though his cape can literally form objects and shape change, his chains can like reach out for miles and grab people. He can literally blast you with the green blast of energy. But 9 times out of 10, he'll fist fight you with his claws, or he'll shoot you with an M16. So to me, that's why I was like, oh, he's definitely a bruiser.
For sure, yeah.
And also, to be honest with you, he's probably the most powerful member of my team.
Sure, yeah, so far.
Even with Clay Strange,
I don't know about all of your...
Yes, I honestly think Spawn is the most powerful member of my team, just because the variety of things that he can do. And also, again, his tactical mind makes him very well suited to be the bruiser.
Cool. I think that's a great choice.
And I think him and Deadshot would get along very well.
Yeah, they would. They'd drink beers together.
They would.
Hell yeah.
They would. But Spawn, to me, seems like the exact type of creature that Amanda Waller would see and lock up immediately.
Absolutely.
So, yes.
She would be like, I want him.
When we first decided that we were going to branch out of universes, I immediately was like, Spawn is on my team.
Yeah, I knew Rowan was going to be on my team no matter what. Yeah. I was going to make it work.
All right, so let's go to the monster, the Killer Croc type person. You know, should be somebody that maybe doesn't look like a human. Or they could, whatever.
Mine does.
Sure, because the Hulk could fit in this role.
Yeah, it is the most obvious.
And the Hulk looks like a human, but yeah, we're going for the monster, like an
extreme,
a killer shark. Excuse me, not killer shark. King shark type, because the king shark is on a lot of Suicide Squads as well. He's not on mine.
Yeah, especially now. So my monster, I just want to say this before I tell you who it is. I don't want no tweets telling me that this is a bad choice. This is my best choice.
Whoa.
This is...
why are you coming out hot and heavy? What's going on here?
So for this,
why are you poking the bear of the internet?
I'm just saying.
Like, they never come after you.
Right. Not ever, not one. I don't want no tweets about this. I literally Googled who are the most powerful characters in comics.
Okay.
For this and the Bruiser, because these are not character types that I am super attracted to, so I didn't have as many thoughts initially on hand. And this is my most powerful character. I'm going to argue that he's more powerful than anyone on Jason's team, and that is Dr. Manhattan.
Interesting.
Because he's a monster. And in the truest see, that's why I said it, because I know people are sitting at home being like, but he's not.
Not quite a villain or an anti-hero here.
Absolutely. Nobody in Watchmen is a hero. In the Watchmen comic book, nobody's a hero. Dan is the most I would give you.
I mean, I'm willing to hear this, but I'm willing to hear you.
I'll tell you.
I'm willing to hear your argument, but I will say, like, I don't know if I would consider Dr. Manhattan an anti-hero.
So I definitely do. He is morally corrupt. He has an affair with a teenager, and then he straight up murders people. And then he also straight up murders people because his government tells him to, which is exactly what Amanda Waller wants. But the reason I settled with Dr. Manhattan is because the classic definition of a monster in a literary sense, and we are pulling from literature, is all based around Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein focuses around the creation of a creature who is a combination of different human abilities and different human parts into something that is visually not human, more powerful than we are, but not necessarily intending threat. And that's what Dr. Manhattan is. He's a combination of organic matter and science. If you go with the Watchmen HBO version, he's two different people. He's a combination of people. He is more powerful and recognizably unhuman. He's not necessarily there with ill intent, but his actions and what makes him different make him lash out.
All right, I've heard your case. I have ruled. All right, we will accept the answer. But I have to ask you a question here.
Yes.
Because even though this will never be a comic book that will ever be published,
Yeah.
I like to think about it that way, to be like, well, what would be this? So my question to you is, how the hell would Praetor Pluto and Rowan even capture this guy or get him to work on this team?
Right. So the way that this has to happen is one of two things.
Okay.
Rowan is a powerful witch. So you fight science with magic, which comic books love to do.
So she like curses him or something?
So she casts a spell or she summons him and then promises him something or offers him something, right, to get him to come back from Mars or wherever it is that he is. Atlanta? Where is Watchmen HBO set?
It's Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah, Tulsa. So
we did a whole episode about it.
He comes back. That was like last year. Comes back from Tulsa or whatever. With Dr. Manhattan, it's actually not, I think he's like Superman. It's not the trick of like wrapping him in a web and dragging him back to Earth. You have to offer him something that he wants. Or you have to give him something or surprise him with.
To be honest with you, it almost seems like you would take somebody that he loves hostage.
Yes, or if you can surprise and delight Dr. Manhattan, he will come with you, which is what I think, to tie it into the HBO series, it's what I think he loves about Angela.
Sure.
Angela surprises him. So I think this invitation would intrigue him because he doesn't see himself as a villain.
I mean, I will say this. It would not surprise me in the next 5 years if DC Comics actually put Dr. Manhattan on.
They'll put Rorschach on there
the Suicide
first.
Squad, because Dr. Manhattan is technically in DC Comics continuity now.
Yes. But I will say that I don't know if Dr. Manhattan lasts more than one outing.
Interesting. Interesting, and you're calling him a monster, in the classic sense as well. Wow, why? And you just because you wanted the most powerful character as your monster?
Yeah,
interesting.
I wanted because to me, because
I took monster as like the visual look.
Yeah, I don't like a lot of those characters.
Okay,
so
you're not a fan of the Savage Dragon? What?
I have a lot of respect for Savage Dragon and for the longevity of that book and for what it means in comic book history, but no.
All right.
His arm hair creeps me out.
Just his arm hair?
Yeah, just that's the only issue I have with him.
All right. You like everything else.
Yeah, I love everything else about Savage Dragon except his arm hair. Also, let's be honest, Dr. Manhattan would look cool on the cover.
Well, I mean, blue light looks great.
Yeah.
All right.
They would look cool.
Interesting. All right.
But the minute I saw that, I was like, that's going to be fun to talk about. Everyone's going to hate it. I'm absolutely putting him on my team.
Well,
Don't tweet me.
I asked you to make the case, and you made the case, so we'll accept it.
All right. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Now, Jason, who is your monster character on your team?
Ashley, I'm going to say a name that some of our listeners might recognize.
Okay.
I don't know if you're going to recognize it, but some of our listeners are going to go when I say this name.
Okay.
My monster is Sharon Ventura.
I don't know that name.
Okay. Sharon Ventura is one of the Miss Marvels in the Marvel Universe, but she's more commonly known as She-Thing of the Fantastic Four.
Oh, yes.
Because she initially gets her powers as Miss Marvel, but then she gets augmented and she turns into a female version of the Ben Grimm Thing. Mm-hmm. And she eventually turns evil. The last time I think she was seen in Marvel Comics, she was in prison. She becomes a bad guy, even though she was a lover of Ben Grimm for quite a while. So, one, the Thing just has an interesting look. The Thing is classically known as a monster. Mm-hmm. I also wanted another lady on my team.
Yep.
And also, I think Sharon is a character, especially if you've read the Fantastic Four by Walt Simonson run. He uses Sharon.
I'm going to whack that into our recommended reading.
The Walter Simonson Fantastic Four. Mm-hmm. They have 3 great volumes that are called Fantastic Four Visionaries by Walter Simonson. They are great reads. They actually just went on sale on Comixology, and they were great. By the time you hear this, that set will be over. I'm sorry, everybody. But Sharon is a character that doesn't get enough love because She-Thing is such a cool idea. She has such a cool look, and she's highly proficient in hand-to-hand combat. She's an expert stunt woman because that's what she originally did. In fact, she's a lion tamer. She was a military academy, and she's also been a member of the Fantastic Four. So she's fought Galactus a couple of times. So now,
damn, where's she been all this time? In prison.
Well, it's because most people have ignored her since, because once you have the main thing, why do you need a second thing?
Yes, and then in the Fraction FF, we had another thing as well.
Yes. So she is a great character.
Good pull.
And I think she needs some more love. And yeah, she should be on my Suicide Squad. She'd be one tough lady. Mm-hmm. She'd be one tough lady. And I'll tell you this. I will say this. I think Floyd Lawton would be attracted to her.
I ship it. I'm here for it.
And what an interesting storyline that would be to see Floyd Lawton flirting with basically a Rocky version of a woman.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right.
And she'd have a great rapport with Amanda Waller.
Yes.
But basically, I'm doing this because She-Thing needs love.
Yes.
And I'm giving it to her.
Marvel, you can hit up Jason at any time to write your She-Thing book.
And I'm giving it to her by throwing her in prison. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. So we are to the extra members, correct?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So this one, actually, let's just do all your extra members.
I think, yeah. I have 3.
Okay. I have 2.
Okay.
So go ahead and tell me, who else did you think needed to be on this team?
So the character that I originally wanted to be my leader, I could not make the case that he's an anti-hero or a villain, but I wanted my initial leader, my Amanda Waller type, to be Mr. Terrific.
Okay. Is Mr. Terrific one of your extra members?
Yeah.
Okay. I was proceeding off the rules that every character has to be an anti-hero or a villain. So I'm sorry. I'm going to nix this choice.
That's fine.
I gave you Dr. Manhattan.
Dr. Manhattan is the villain.
Mr. Terrific is not an anti-hero, nor is he a villain.
I just think he would have been a really capable leader of this team.
Sure. I'm sorry, rolling in the court. Throwing out that choice.
I considered her as a weapons expert, but she's more of a pilot, is Dr. Aphra. From the Star Wars comics universe.
Definitely an anti-hero.
Yeah. But I couldn't slot her in anywhere, and I wanted a Robin.
So is Dr. Aphra on your team?
Yeah, she's one of my extra members.
Oh, interesting. You know, it'd be funny because she'd think Earth is so backwards.
Yeah, this would be like her vacation, right? Sure. Like, this would be like the thing she would do for fun. And then you joked about this, but I 100% dead seriously put the Red Baron on my team.
from Peanuts.
Yeah, because I was like, who from Peanuts is evil? And it's pretty much the Red Baron, Violet, or the little redhead girl. And the Red Baron actually kills people and downs planes, wreaks active havoc.
Just in case anybody doesn't know, you should explain who the Red Baron is.
Also, the Red Baron is arguably a construct of Snoopy's mind. So if we never see him, but he is this powerful, that's quite an ally.
I don't know. I always took him as the real Red Baron from World War I, excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in the Peanuts comic strip, if you're not familiar, you need to drop everything and read 50 years of comic strip history. The Peanuts is the best comic strip that has ever existed. And one of the lead characters of it is Snoopy. Snoopy's that cute little beagle. And Snoopy has several fantasy lives, which he carries on. And one of them, the best one, because I'm not here for Joe Cool, really, is of the World War I flying ace. He flies around on top of his doghouse, sometimes with Woodstock.
Super 7 made a great action figure of it.
Amazing. All their Peanuts stuff is great.
They didn't make his house.
Well, maybe that's coming in the next
They need to make his house.
wave. And the Red Baron, the actual figure from Earth history, our history, is his nemesis. And you never see him, but you often see the result of his presence. And he's very powerful. He shot down the doghouse. He stranded Snoopy in Europe for an entire movie, an entire segment, several comic strips. And
you know why you don't see the Red Baron, right?
Because he doesn't exist.
Because he's an adult.
Because he's imaginary.
Because he's an adult.
But he is also, in terms of Peanuts continuity, probably the most powerful villain that they have. So like I said, I did consider the kite eating tree, but that seemed too out there.
That's way too crazy.
So I went with the Red Baron because I wanted like a wild choice. And I was like, we don't give comic strips enough love in these and it's also because like the types of world that they inhabit are very different in superhero comics. But I kind of thought for the sake of this, it might be fun to put the Red Baron on my list. Mm-hmm. All right, Jason, what are the extra members joining your team?
My extra members is she's a recent addition to the Suicide Squad, but I like her being on the team. That is Katana, the Tatsu Yamashiro.
I love Katana.
I love Katana on the Suicide Squad. I wish we'd gotten a little bit more of her in the movie.
Karen Fukuhara is really great.
She is definitely an anti-hero, and of course, I think the Soul Taker sword, where she has the ability to capture the spirit of every being it kills and communicate to it, I think is amazing. Also, I like that I have a team full of like people that don't have any superpowers that are just very skilled, which Katana is one of them.
Which I definitely think if you were building an actual suicide, like if you were pitching yours, I think that's the way to take it.
Yes. So Katana is definitely on my team. And the other character, because I wanted another crazy person, I also wanted sort of a person that wasn't human.
Uh-huh.
My last member is because Amanda Waller would definitely put the quarter in this machine and then somehow trick this person to always be on the team forever. Scud, the disposable assassin.
Oh my God.
So if you don't know who Scud is, it's
deep cut indie comics.
It is a deep cut indie comic that eventually became an Image comic. Scud is a disposable, one-use assassination robot who learns that once he kills his target, he'll self-destruct. So in order to stay alive, Scud just wounds his target and pays to have it remain on life support by taking other assassination jobs. It's an off-the-rails sci-fi superhero adventure created by Rob Schrab, who is now... he worked on Community. He's worked on Rick and Morty. He's a
TV guy now.
He's written a bunch of Marvel comics.
Yeah.
So Scud the Disposable Assassin would pair well with Deadshot. And also, I just think... if Amanda Waller figured out that Scuds existed in the world, she would definitely grab one.
There you go. Absolutely. That's very funny.
Also, Scud's an excellent shot. He's kind of hard. He's impossible to kill.
He kind of reminds me of Helper.
Yes.
From Venture Brothers.
I also wanted a jokester on my team because I think you always need a jokester, and Scud would be my jokester.
Good call.
So, because there always is that character on every team.
Who's mouthy, yeah.
Yes, and I don't think in a Suicide Squad team that Hawkeye would be that jokey.
Maybe, I was going to say, in an Avengers lineup, nowadays it tends to be your Spider character. Or your Iron Man.
All right, so those are our teams.
Do you want to run them down?
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, so my leader is Praetor Pluto from the amazing Ringo-nominated comic Jupiter Jet. My field leader is Rowan Black from Image Comics Black Magic. My weapons expert is the Winter Soldier from Marvel. My wild card is DC's Carrie Kelly, aka Robin. My magic wielder is also from DC, and that is Clarion the Witch Boy. My bruiser is from the My Hero Academia manga Todoroki. My monster is Vertigo Comics Dr. Manhattan, and my extra members are Marvel Star Wars Comics Dr. Aphra and Peanuts comic strip villain extraordinaire, the Red Baron. Jason, give us your team.
My leader is Amanda Waller. My field leader is Marvel Comics Hawkeye Clint Barton. My weapons expert is Deadshot from DC Comics. My wild card is Superman Blue. My magic welder is Clea Strange. My bruiser is Image Comics Spawn. My monster is Sharon Ventura, the She-Thing. And my extra members are Katana and Scud, the disposable assassin. And I'll say this right now. If somebody out there wants to draw fan art of our teams and they tweet it to us, we will send you a free Geek History Lesson pin.
Woo!
Anywhere in the world. Send us some more. The best one. We're not going to give it to everybody, I'm sorry. But like the one that we like the best, we'll choose one and we'll send you a Geek History Lesson pin. Because I love it when people draw our teams because I think they're really cool.
Yeah. Fan art sustains us.
Yes. All right, so let's go into the recommended reading. What is that, Ashley?
So the recommended reading, if you go to geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading, we have these great little Amazon widgets. You can buy these stories in your format of choice, and you steal a little bit of money from Jeff Bezos' pocket and put it back in ours to keep the lights on and the bullets flowing here at the Mind University.
Bullets flowing?
I don't know. I was trying to come up with something for the Suicide Squad.
That's fine. That's fine. That's not bad.
We do not condone violence or the use of firearms at the Mind University.
That's right.
You got to take that off site.
Gun safety.
That's right.
There are no weapons allowed at the Mind University.
That's right. You leave them out the door when you come in.
The only weapon is your mind. That's why it's a Mind University.
Ooh, love that. So we are going to throw up our 3 favorite Suicide Squad comics. If you want more of the actual characters that inhabit these teams, you know John Ostrander's run is going to be on here. And then I'm also going to include the Fantastic Four collection that Jason mentioned, the first Peanuts collection that you can get your hands on. And
maybe Scud.
And Scud,
Put Scud the disposable assassin.
all the sort of single issues that we mentioned, I made notes of, and they're going to go up there. So go and check some of that stuff out. They're all these stories are stuff that we personally recommend.
I like both our teams. I'm so glad we did this episode. And now let's go into the honor roll.
Yeah.
The section of the podcast where if you go to Apple Podcasts and you leave us a 5-star review. If you haven't done it, go do it. But if you have done it, leave us a 5-star review. You can literally write anything, and we will read it on the air as a thank you for helping to shout your love on the hilltops of the podcast, and also to help us out in the Apple search algorithm, because reviews are very important on that. And that's why I said, please go do that if you haven't. So, Ashley, who is joining the honor roll this week?
We have 2 people joining the honor roll today. First is definitely a Flash fan because their name is Iris Saved Barry, and they say, thanks for everything. Thank you so much for everything you do with how much time goes into making this podcast as amazing as it is. I originally found the podcast when I was desperately searching for Donna Troy content and stumbled onto your episode about her. I've been hooked ever since. I can't begin to describe how much you've helped me on my journey into getting into DC Comics, and if it wasn't for you, I'd still be struggling to figure out where to start. So sweet. That's exactly why we created this podcast. So that's really lovely to hear.
Nice. Thank you.
And also joining the honor roll today is Fuzzy B, who says, on topic, well put together, and enjoyable. This show is great, stays on topic, and finds a way to entertain without being predictable. I highly recommend.
Nice. Thank you.
So thank you, Fuzzy B and Iris Saved Barry, for your 5-star reviews. Welcome to the Teacher's Lounge. And Professor Jason, what's going on in there today?
Well, over in the corner, they can find a sculpture by Professor Walt Simonson. He teaches art and design, and he did an amazing sculpture of She-Thing. So it's right in the corner. He literally just did it today. He heard me talking about it on my lunch break, whipped it up. Walt Simonson, a master.
Great.
Yep. And also a very nice felly.
Felly?
He is a nice felly.
Nice.
I've met him once. He's a very nice felly.
Aww.
Yes. All right. So don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on all the various podcast platforms: Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify. We're all over there. By the way, if we're not on a podcast platform that you listen to, tell us. We'll make sure we are. And don't forget to follow this podcast on all the places on social media. Ashley, where can they do that?
You can do that, first of all, on our website at geekhistorylesson.com, facebook.com/geekhistorylesson, or on Twitter at GHL Podcast, because Geek History Lesson was too many characters.
Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Jawin. That's JAWIIN. Follow Ashley on Instagram and Twitter at Ashley V. Robinson. And don't forget to support this podcast over at Patreon at patreon.com/Jawin. If you do, you can listen to this week's episode of Geek History Lesson Extra, only available on Patreon. What made the Suicide Squad so popular? So go over there, helps join those awesome super friends. And now we're to hashtag stick around, the final section of the podcast. Actually, you might have talked about this a little bit earlier. I was going to ask you, anyone on your team that you wanted to get on there that you couldn't figure out a way to get on there? Was there any character that you were like, I really wanted this, and then you just were like, they don't fit into the roles?
Well, like I said, I considered Enchantress,
yes.
Because I do think June Moon / Enchantress is a very cool and interesting character. I considered Zatanna. I consider a lot of magic users, but I don't think the Suicide Squad is the team for too much magic.
I agree.
And I know I put Dr. Manhattan on my team, but I also don't think the Suicide Squad is the team for too many superpowers. So I hope someday
I agree.
We will get to
They're
do
a stealth team.
Yes. So a street level team, kind of like what you were discussing, I think is a smarter choice. Someday I'm hoping in celebration of either a TV show or a movie, we will do a Best Justice League Dark ever or something like that.
People out there suggest it.
And then I can throw all the magic users on that one that I want. I also really wanted to include a lot more indie characters, but the thing about indie comics is they tend to be more
Not superhero.
more ground level, and we're trying to do superheroes like indie
It's a nice pull for Rowan, though.
Thank you. I couldn't find a place for Invincible or Adam Eve. They were too powerful. And again, I know I put Dr. Manhattan on my team.
I mean, you
the most powerful being ever.
You literally don't need the rest of the squad because you have Dr. Manhattan.
Yes, exactly. But like I said, we know he's not sticking around. So I actually, of the teams we've done so far, I found this the most difficult.
Oh, interesting.
So is there anyone that you missed?
Magneto.
Ooh, too powerful.
I couldn't figure out a way, because again, I try to write that story. What would this story be?
Gee, it's like you're a professional writer.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out a way to get that I would buy that Magneto would be on this team. I think Magneto would escape in seconds and then kill Amanda Waller.
Unless he was the leader, of course, yeah.
Yes, so, but he was one that I was like, oh, he would be interesting to have on a Suicide Squad.
I thought about several X-Men. Armor was the one that I had on my team the longest, but again, they all kind of seemed too powerful.
And then I tried, I also as well wanted to try to figure out a way to put somebody from the Invincible comic book universe in here as well.
I love it so much, yeah.
But I couldn't figure out, nobody really seemed right.
Yeah.
I thought about Omni-Man for quite a while.
Very powerful.
But I thought it was better to have the Superman Blue gag.
Yeah.
Also, I put Superman Blue on that team because I was just thinking about those covers. And
He'd look cool,
and I was like, oh, he would look so out of place with all these other people carrying guns.
We both put giant blue superheroes on our teams.
Yes, we like blue. We love blue. And I think that's a perfect place to end it. Mm-hmm. And so thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for enjoying this episode of Geek History Lesson. I am Jason, the not disposable podcast host, Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson. And Professor Jason, would you please dismiss the class?
Class is sanctioned and dismissed.